Welcome to the Design Imposter Podcast, the show where we explore the enigmatic world of imposter syndrome through the lens of design, community, and empowerment. I'm Monique Jenkins.
And I'm Jesica Valis. We're your co-hosts of the show and the founders of the Creative Circle Collective, a design agency that strengthens community links for nonprofits and corporate businesses by creating impactful branding and websites. Join us as we explore the relationship between design, community, and creativity. Welcome to Design Imposter.
Do you seem stuck in your career, not sure how to proceed to the next level, and wondering if achieving a master's degree in art, publishing, design, marketing, or writing will take you there? Welcome to this week's episode of The Design Imposter. In this episode, Monique and I are joined by former University of Baltimore classmates to discuss our careers before, during, and after grad school. Monique and I have mentioned before that we met at the University of Baltimore's Publication Designs Master's Program, now called Integrated Design, and we'd like to introduce you to a couple of the amazingly talented people who encouraged us and partied with us along the way. Welcome, Dawn Whalen, our creative writing guru, Tracy Hirsch, the former elite Miss Maryland, former Baltimore Ravens playmaker, and the ever-present ray of positive sunshine that you need in your life. Also welcome Maria Mendez, the artiste, and Shannon McKinnon, a crazy wicked designer who is the daughter-in-law of Marion Winnick, a professor at the University of Baltimore. Monique, can you start us off by telling us a little bit more about this master's program?
Sure. So the MA program at the University of Baltimore is in integrated design, but back when we took it, I want to say that it was called publishing design. They've since changed the program name, but it's a 36 credit program that blends theory and practice across various medias. It focuses on 4 key areas: graphic design, web design, motion graphics, and professional writing. And students develop skills in design and writing for multiple platforms. And they're supported by a foundation in research, creative process, and design principles. This program accumulates with the capstone program where students get to apply their skills, which is why I wanted to go to this program in the first place, in a real world setting. So actually doing projects for clients that are out there in the world who have these problems, I think is incredibly helpful.
Some of the huge draws to this program were that they offered classes in the evening, weekends, and summer, and it was really flexible for students from a variety of backgrounds. So if you were working already, if you were coming straight from undergrad, and it even had a roadmap to get you from an MA to an MFA program, which essentially allowed you to become a professor and teacher, and it just backed you up in that. Some of the classes that we had to take from the get-go were introduction to web design, introduction to graphic design principles, written communication, visual and verbal rhetoric. And then I'm just looking at the website really quick, and I'm seeing some of my favorites, which were, I actually really liked visual and verbal rhetoric. Typography, everybody here took it. Another typography, book design, I would have loved that one. Copyright and publishing, magazine writing, internships, special topics. I mean, there was really anything you could take. And because they offered so many classes at different times, you really had a lot of flexibility to work around your work schedule. I'd like to introduce you to our first guest, Dawn Whalen. Dawn came to the University of Baltimore program with a very strong writing background. And Dawn, I'll let you explain more.
But I guess just for an intro, I joined the program because at the time, that was back in 2013, so I'll date myself here. I just turned 30. I was still working in a restaurant. Maybe I was about to turn 30. And I was having a hard time finding a real world job, quote unquote. No hate to my fellow restaurant alums, but I just wanted something where I could have my weekends and where I could have benefits. So I had an English degree in undergrad, and I was just striking out on the job boards. But I found the UB program, and it seemed like a good segue where I had a little bit of backbone with my English degree, but it was also branching out and learning something new. I did not have a strong design background before I got into the program. And I'll admit, I'm still not a strong designer, but what the program did teach me, the most important like experience that I'd say I got out of the program was how to understand and work with designers. So understanding the programs, the challenges that they face, the things that they look for, how to work alongside them has been crucial to my career. So I ended up, we can go more into this later, but I ended up in marketing. So marketing and communications. So you're working alongside designers all the time, whether they're on your team, whether it's, cross-functional departments, or even whether you're working with like freelancers. So yeah, I made some great friends, people on this call along the way, and just collected some great skills at UB. So it feels like a long time ago, but I guess it was graduated about 7 years ago. So I didn't know they changed the name of the program. Should I change it on my resume?
The only reason I know that is because I worked at the DoD, and when they tried to validate my degree and called the University of Baltimore, they're like, "There's no such program named publication design." And I was like, no. I went to school and I have a master's degree. And
I'll show you the paper.
And they were
right over here.
Exactly, right over here. They were like, yeah, it's no longer called publication design. It's called integrated marketing or integrated design or something. And I was like, you guys could have just said we changed the name. You didn't have to tell them that I didn't graduate, apparently. I was like, that's cool. Whatever. No worries. Cool. I'm going to go to Shannon next to give us a little bit of overview.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon McKenna. Went to the UB program at the same time as everybody else here. My story is a little different than Don's, although I am a restaurant alum as well, as you can say. But I had an undergrad in marketing with a fine arts minor. I always kind of knew I wanted to get into the creative side. I just didn't have a lot of influence in the right direction from a creative standpoint. Like, I come from a blue collar family, I didn't really have anyone to follow. So graduated, found a job in recruiting, took whatever I could as soon as I got a job so that I could pay for my student loans. Was there for a year and a half, very unhappy. And my mother-in-law, Marian Winnick, is a professor at UB. And so she was like, there's this really great program that is all about graphic design. You should check it out. And so I did, and it was the best decision I made.
Tracy, I'll go since you're right next to Shannon. I'll let you know.
Shannon moved to Austin, so I moved to Austin. My path was very similar, I feel like, to Don. So Don and I actually started the program the semester before everyone else. We had correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but I don't think we had little to no design history or background. That
is correct.
Okay. So we had to take like the intro to type and intro to software class, I think. But my undergrad was in human communication theory, which what do you do after that? I don't know. I was working at a bank and then got a job at a nonprofit agency. I was doing a lot of different things, but part of what they had me do was marketing and design, like their annual reports and flyers and things like that. And at the time, I was actually enrolled in the MBA program at the University of Baltimore, thinking that's the route I wanted to go. But that one semester of that, and I was like, absolutely not. So I just went on their site and was just poking around to see what other programs they had. And then was like, wait, you can do graphic design for a living? I had no idea. So I was like, well, I'll just apply, thinking there's no way they're going to let me in this program with these rinky-dink annual reports I created at Microsoft Publisher. That's embarrassing to say, but they let me in, and 2 weeks later, we started these classes. So my life kind of flipped upside down, but like Shannon said, it was the best decision. So kind of stumbled into graphic design, but really happy that I did.
And Maria, last but not least.
Hey, everyone. So I always been like artsy. Like, I always loved art classes. Like, that's what I live for. Right. So then senior year in high school, I was like, I need to figure out what to do with my life, like major something that will, lead me to somewhere, right? So, The only thing though that I thought I could do like the best was communications, because like I won't say like I'm the best writer, but it's something I could do, right? So, and I didn't hate it. Like I hate all the other stuff, like science, all that stuff. I was like, so I got my undergrad in communications. So it was until my senior year in college that I took like intro to design, where they kind of introduce you to all the Adobe programs. And that's when I realized, oh man, well, I should have majored in design. This is kind of like a perfect mesh of like art, and then there's like jobs I could get, like plenty of job openings I could get into. So when I graduated in college, I needed to find a job to pay all these loans and, get my life started. So I was working at a debt collector. It was crazy, but, learn a lot of important life lessons there about getting always pay your bills on time and what it could do to your credit score. And it's just bad and it's sad too. But so it's 2013, I was 22, and, I was kind of thinking like maybe I should go to a community college and get like associates, but all the community college courses, they were during the day, and I couldn't like, just leave work because I needed to work. I needed to make some money. So I found UB just because they had evening classes and weekend classes available. And I was like, okay, I could do it in the evenings or in the weekends, and I could still keep my full-time job. So, and yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to get in because all I had was like my week, like layouts for my first design class. And so when I had that interview, I forget what the lady at the time, she was like, oh, you'll be fine. You sounds like you know how to use the software programs, so you'll be okay. I'm like, okay. So she had that faith in me. So so that's how I got started in the UB program.
So Monique, give yourself, for first-time listeners, give a quick introduction of yourself and your journey.
So hey everybody, I'm Monique, one of the podcast hosts. I went to Towson for undergrad and got a degree in communications and marketing. I didn't know that I wanted to be a designer until I got to that program and started doing the marketing classes and realized that I did not want to sell to people in the way that we were selling, but I did really like the visual side. And I think at the time I was doing an internship at AOL, and it was called advertising.com in their advertising department. And I would have to classify websites into different tiers in order to place ads on them. And I liked the visual side of like looking at websites and critiquing and kind of figuring those things out. And I went into UB's program after I graduated because I didn't know what I was going to do with my communication degree. I knew that I liked the visual side of marketing from work, and I liked that from class. And then I found this program. Again, I have no context about design. I'd never opened a design software before, other than like creating very ugly graphics for MySpace for my friends back in the day. I had no context at all about how to use a design software. And I don't think I ever opened up Adobe or even heard the word Adobe at that particular point. But I knew I wanted to go down a visual path, and I just jumped in and kind of immersed myself. Like all of you, I did not know that no one has an undergrad in design, and went that path, which is super interesting that you can get to this space without even knowing that you want to be a designer until you get past that first degree. What about you, Jessica? Give us an overview.
So, hi, my name is Jesica Valis. I am also co-host of this podcast, and I am the co-founder of the Creative Circle Collective with Monique. My background starts at Stevenson University. I have an undergrad in business communication, which meant that I had a little bit of every kind of communication: person to person, visual, oral, written, interpersonal, conflict negotiation, cultural, business. I mean, it was just everything. So when I graduated, I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do because there's so many different paths to take. And it kind of just fell in my lap that I got this job at Wells Fargo being like the traffic coordinator and like working in publishing and design. And I did that for a couple years, and I had like refined the systems to a point where I was just kind of getting bored. Something that was 3 hours then took like 20 minutes for me. And so I decided that the only way to move up the corporate ladder was to take a master's course and, to get higher education. So I found this program online and I talked to my boss, and she was a little hesitant at first. And I told her that the course was in the evening and on weekends. And so I wouldn't miss any time at work, because I worked really weird hours. I worked from 10:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night. That way I was available for the market open and market close, and I could prep things for the next morning. So, and those weird hours really kept me from like doing intramural leagues or going to happy hours and stuff. So, but once I told her that I wouldn't be missing out on any work, she was all for it. And plus, Wells Fargo paid for the master's. So I was like, I'm not going to leave money on the table. So that's how I got into the program. And now let's kind of go more in depth. What was your favorite class while we were enrolled? And what was one of the most valuable things you learned from that experience?
I mean, honestly, one of my favorite classes was with Marion. But it was a writing class, and I don't write in my job. And it was absolutely one of my favorite classes, hands down. Marion is so much fun.
Well, it was a creative writing course?
Yeah, and it was super easy. Like, I'll never forget one of the projects she had us go out in the real world and immerse yourself in some experience and then write on it. And that was right when I was starting my NFL journey. So I went to a Ravens cheerleading prep class and wrote about it. And to this day, she still talks about it because it was so fun. Like, that was probably one of the things in my entire UB career that like will stick with me, probably, which is funny because it's not even design related. Class.
I think my favorite class, I can't remember the name of the professor, only like what he looks like, but it was a creative thinking class. And it was the first time that I think someone had challenged me to like look more than surface level with design. So I was like, as a designer, especially when I was a graphic designer, it was like, what looks pretty? Like, what does it look pretty? Oh, does it like hit market trends and things like that? But that was the first time where I remember the project, he had us create a onesie for a baby, and we had to have some type of like aha moment in the onesie. And I remember that I like wrote a poem on the onesie, and the poem was a gender reveal. So inside of the poem, there were specific letters that I highlighted that said like, it's a boy or whatever the case is. And I was like, oh, that's so clever. And I remember him just hammering into us the idea that you have to look more than like surface level on design, that you need to find a sense of like whatever the aha moment is in a logo concept or whatever. And I think about that whenever someone says like, oh, the FedEx logo has an arrow in it, or the Dunkin' Donuts logo has this. I'm always like, oh, those are the aha moments that people like surfacely probably aren't paying attention to as a regular consumer. But like one of the things that me and Jessica used to do, because we're ridiculous people, is that we would text each other back and forth with like design concepts or ideas or whatever the case is as we like move through the program. And even when we left the program, and even like yesterday, we would text each other whenever we found like an interesting design concept and critique it or talk about it or talk about these little like aha moments that we found in design. And that was the most profound thing to me, because I want to say, at least in the beginning of my design career, it very much was like, oh, this looks nice. I think that this looks nice. There was no justification for my design. It was just like, I think this looks nice. And I just pushed it out there in the world. And other people would be like, yeah, I think I've seen a similar design on something else. But that was the first moment where I was like, oh, like there needs to be something deeper for people to look at. And everyone isn't going to see that, but there are going to be a specific audience of people who are paying enough attention to see that specific thing. And I thought that was really fun. I'm pretty sure that Jessica's favorite class was like a Saturday class. So
oh yeah, I know everybody hates it, but the 6-hour Saturday class, I feel like I got so much out of that class. I know, you're shaking your heads. It was Saturday from like early morning. We'd eat lunch there. We wouldn't leave till like 2 p.m. But honestly, the portfolio pieces and the amount of creativity, and they really made you do everything. I remember this is when Shannon and I got cameras and we were going to that underpass to get graffiti pictures. Yep. I was on my Vespa going to like East Baltimore neighborhoods, taking pictures and then skedaddling out. Skedaddling out of there. Yeah. But everything you did for the program, you had to come up with yourself. And it really helped spur me from going from print to digital. We had Joe Fioramonti, who was one of the professors. There were two professors for the class, and he was there, and he really helped develop my love for website design. So that was my favorite. Sorry, guys.
My favorite was Megan's class. I think it was Intro to Print Design or something along those lines.
Was it typography?
No, we went to the printers.
Yep.
Oh, that's designers survival
Yes.
course. Yeah.
Yes.
I like that class too. Yeah.
So it's very relevant to what I do now, which is ironic because that was my favorite class at the time. I guess that's not ironic. It just makes sense. But I loved going and seeing the large scale printers and how things that we design are actually manufactured. And then the different paper types, and I still collect paper types now and like paper samples wherever I go. But that was my favorite class.
I totally bought a steam cleaner the other day, and it came with this like super glossy ad, and then it's got like 2 QR codes on the side, and I saved it because I was like, ooh, Monique and I can use this as a handout. I want to copy how this is laid out. So I'm saving those printed copies too.
Yeah, I'm very much of like a tangible designer. Love print. Well, print will never die in my eyes.
I guess I'll go. I'm sitting here trying to think of the memories, and I remember the visit to the print place. I remember Marion's class. I definitely remember the Saturday class. I have, takeaways and fond memories and like tough things that happened. But the one of the things that stood out to me in the program was it was advanced graphic design with Amy and Trace and Chelsea. It's not Chelsea. Trace and Shannon. Maybe Chelsea was in that class too. I can't remember. But one of the assignments we had to pick a film director, and basically like to do your research, you had to watch like as many movies by this film director as you could and try to learn the style, learn what elements that director likes to use. Are they kind of dark and eerie, or are they bright and like what's their style? And then you had to develop movie posters for three of their films that echoed that style that you had, the vibe that you got from them. And it was just I don't think my execution was the greatest, but I had so much fun. I did Stanley Kubrick. So I was watching all of his weird movies like The Shining and Clockwork Orange and Eyes Wide Shut and what's the one? Dr. Strangelove, A Space Odyssey 2001. So I had a blast watching those movies, but then I worked really hard on Full Metal Jacket was another one. They're all coming back to me now. I just thought that was a really cool assignment. And then it was really cool to watch what everybody else did with theirs. Like someone had Baz Luhrmann. I'm drawing blanks, but
I did Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. That was cool. So that's all I'll say about that.
I completely forgot about that class until you mentioned it.
I wasn't in that class, but hearing that class and then the creative thinking class, I'm like, I kind of want to go back and take some of these classes.
You missed out.
I did.
I was gonna say, by far throughout the entirety of the program, that's the project that landed me most jobs, is that movie poster.
The movie.
Yeah, because I was like, I did Michael Bay, and I still have that piece in my portfolio even today. Don't know why, but it won't leave me. And I remember going to an interview, and they were like, "Oh, this is like a super interesting concept." And I think I did like a flat design instead of like a 3D kind of like movie poster that Michael Bay usually does. But I did like 3 variations of explosions because he has a multitude of explosions inside of his like film work. And I remember talking about that project in interviews and having people be like, "Oh, that's a really like interesting take on that. How'd you come up with that?" And I was like, "Oh, it was like a project for a class that I was doing." That I think by far is probably my favorite piece of work that came out of the entire program was that poster series.
There was another class. Me and Shannon did it. It was a Saturday class. We had to drive down to Shady Grove and we had to create a book as if it was for a museum walkthrough. And you had to take two completely opposite concepts and make it into an exhibit. So you, Shannon, you did like the timeline of dogs in art, I think.
Yeah, the correlation of art trends or like styles with how dogs were perceived in those styles.
And then I did one with maps and typography. So I did all like London maps, which was really fun. And then there was another part of that class. I think it was this part, that same class. We had to make a booklet, and I can't remember what the specific project was, but I did mine on food and like local food places around my office downtown, and I printed it because of course with this program you can't just print something from your home printer. Like if you want to present, you need to have it professionally printed, and a lot of the local print agencies are really great about it. And so we printed it out, and when I left Wells Fargo, I didn't have any portfolio pieces, and when I was starting my agency, I went to this Chamber of Commerce meeting and I brought one of those booklets, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so good." And like this, I guess she was like a congresswoman, like councilwoman for Bel Air, was like walking around the entire chamber meeting with like my booklet and was like, "Oh my God, look at this, look at this." So back to Shannon's comment about print will never die. Sometimes you need those tangible things.
Yeah. That was type 2 with Janine?
Yes.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Janine. Gosh, so many classes, so many professors.
That was also, I think as far as print is concerned, that was like a good piece in time where I feel like people were like doing super interesting things with their resumes in print. Because I remember us talking about, maybe this was in a creative concepts class, talking about a guy who made his brochure or made his resume into a, what was it? It was like a menu or something. He made it into a menu, and then he put the menu around the Google campus. And when people would pick it up thinking it was like for Thai food or something like that, it would be his resume and all of his like details. And he got a call back from them because they thought that that was so creative that he didn't like apply online like everyone else and kind of just waited for them to get in touch with them. But he like handed out these physical resumes around campus that people thought were a brochure and like, put in drawers and stuff like, "Oh, I'm going to order Thai tomorrow." And then when they picked it up, it was him. And I think he was of Taiwanese background and all about his culture and how that evolved in his design work and things like that. And I thought that was like so cool. And I remember wanting to spend too much money printing out like a brochure of my resume with all of this stuff and like shipping it to all of these businesses so that they had my resume in a physical and tangible way. Because I think a large part of being an effective designer is being able to print your actual work and knowing what it takes to send something to the printer and how, colors evolve and different things like that. I remember falling in love with print in those courses. It's the first time that I think that I'd ever printed anything. And I will say that the whole printing process at the lab was the most confusing thing to me. I can't tell you how many times that I probably broke that printer or messed something up setting it to print.
I worked in the lab and I still didn't understand.
It was by far the worst part. I was like, "Oh my God, I gotta go print something." Or mounting things. Like
mounting was the worst thing.
You're at like the 11th and a half hour and you just like cut through your artwork. You're just like...
There were many times I feel like Don and I were mounting things in the parking garage right before class.
Yep.
Yeah, we like put newspapers down on the ground and we're spraying, what is it, Super 76 or something on there? What's that stuff called? I remember that.
Fun fact about that is it got so bad with people like mounting things right before classes. Everyone was using the design lab to do it. So everything inside of the design lab was sticky. So they had to put up signs to tell nobody does it. And then people would go into the bathroom and spray out their work inside of the bathroom. So like the stalls and all of the things inside of the stalls were so sticky and that stuff is so adhesive. And I remember that because I got dinged. I had to submit a project. and I was flying out to California, and I was like, I don't have time to like do this. And I spray mounted somewhere on campus, and I like stuck it together. And then I like was like, I can't stay for class, but like, here's my work. I got to go to the airport. And I remember I got dinged because my professor was like, your spray mount was still sticky and it stuck to the back of someone else's work. And when she ripped it apart, it ripped my design in half. And she was like, this is so unprofessional. And I was like, you will never catch me slipping like this again. I will do all of my work beforehand. But I was like, I just remember like printing that project out like 6 or 7 times. And I was like, the colors just aren't right. This isn't right. I would cut it. And then I don't know why I was having such a hard time with that like knife, but I was like, I would cut it and then the lines wouldn't be straight. And I was like, I just got to like put this on the paper and I just got to get to the airport. And I spray mounted it, stuck it on there, handed in all my stuff. And it ripped apart as she was trying to grade things.
What professor do you remember?
I can't remember. It was a woman. I won't forget what she said to me, which is like, this is the most, she was like, there is a certain quality, she said something like, there is a certain expectation of quality in design. And this isn't representative of the quality of design that I would pass off to a person. She was like, so if you were in a job environment and you threw something together like this really quickly and handed it over to your boss, do you not think that you would get fired? And I was like, what? I'm sorry. I just had to get to the airport. And ever since she said that, I was like, I'm going to spray mount the day before. I'm going to give it 24 hours to like cure. It made me pay a little bit more attention to detail. Cause I think that as a graduate student, you're like, we were all working. I just got to get this done. Cause I got like other stuff, a million other things to do. But I think when she said that, I was like, oh, you have to pay attention to the little details that probably don't seem to be a big deal to you, but like are a representation of like who you are. So if you sent your resume in and it has a typo on it, someone's going to look at that and be like, oh, they say attention to detail, but they don't pay attention to the details of even the thing that they have submitted to me. So you have to think about that. And I think about that when I was like teaching as a professor. Like I think I had a student who had no design experience and he had to submit a resume to me. And I think he put, I pumped gas at the local gas station as like a one-liner on his resume. And I was like, what does this have to do with design? And he was like, I don't know. He was like, but I needed a resume. So I just put it together. And I was like, you could have talked about like customer service. You could like, there were a million things for you to talk about. You could have said like, oh, the pump is generally out and we have to put signage on the pump that says this one isn't available for use. And you had to create the sign because he had told me this whole story about that. You could have put anything on there. But I was like, if I sent this resume into a job that specifically was a design job and it says I pump gas, there's no correlation there for me to be like, oh, I should give this person an opportunity to work here in a paid position for hundreds of, thousands of dollars or whatever the case is. There just has to be a little bit more tact in those things. And I remember that all the time when I'm thinking about like some of the work that I submit. I'm like, did I double check that email like 6 times before I sent it out just to make sure that the tone is right and the setting is right and the things are correct? And she taught me that in that class. Because after that, I was like, I will never submit a piece of work that looks like this ever again. It will be perfect.
No matter how much attention to detail I have, I will always forget the damn attachment
100%.
to the email.
100%.
It's not a reflection of me work. I just forget the damn attachment.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Shannon is speaking truth right now.
But I was like, even that, like design, like I'm like, now Google has the thing is like, you said something about an attachment. Did you attach the thing? That is a lifesaver. Like that was someone, that thing right there.
Even to this day,
yes.
I'll send a client something and be like, here's your updated business card. Let me know if you like A or B. And they'll be like, there's no attachment. I'm like, you know what? It's cool. I'll send it over. So I did want to say about the mounting part is that I would always have to print things 2 times because using that X-Acto knife, I don't care if the cutting board kept it in place. The cut was always crooked and you could tell. It was my least favorite thing. I'd be like, can somebody else cut this for me? Like, I've just massacred this design or this like magazine spread. Yeah. But I did want to mention another class, and that was the website design class with Joe Fiormonti. And he's the one who really set into motion for me the idea that I could be an agency owner. Because when we wouldn't just, do the HTML, CSS for the website, he would have us do the mood board, the client brief, the presentation part. And he's like, this is how I do it for my clients, and this is how you're going to do it for yours. So it really set a precedence for me about how I needed to move forward. And when I first started off, I did a very raw version of that. I was like, here's the mood board. Like, what do you like? What do you dislike? And then as I've been doing this for longer, obviously my process is involved, but having a professor who's been in the work and can give that knowledge to us, the students, was absolutely invaluable.
I agree. I think Joe was one of my favorite professors in the program. And yeah, the stuff that he taught us, I use every single day in my job.
Yeah. A quick thing about Joe, one of my one-liners from him that I remember, he was great. I'm friends with him on Facebook. He takes pictures of his steak all the time, and it looks delicious. But anyway, I think it was the project where you had to do a neighborhood, and I was trying to pull something off, and it wasn't quite working. And he said, that's okay. Like, I would rather you take a chance and strike out on something dangerous, on something that's difficult, than to do something that's easy and pull it off. Like, try something hard. And that stuck with me because it applies to more than just that project, right? Like, try the hard stuff. You might mess up, but you might get better. You might get it right.
Dawn, that completely just reminded me of your beer can chicken.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Tell everybody what the class was, what the project was.
Oh, what class was that? Was that typography? I don't remember what class it was, but
I think it was type.
Oh, it's such a blur. But I was just trying to do a recipe, but I was a single guy and I like to cook. And so my idea was to make like I'm sure somebody, like 100 people have done this by now, but to make like a recipe book for single guys who are trying to impress the ladies with their cooking.
I remember that.
So like beer can chicken was my big first idea. Like, oh, the ladies are going to love this, right? But it was fun. I made it, and then I took pictures of it, and I wrote this silly recipe, but it was like a conversational recipe, like first. And I used like a Michelob
a beer
Ultra.
For yourself.
I used Michelob Ultra, not because I like that, but because the can was thin and tall. I felt like it would fit the cavity of the chicken well. But yeah,
God.
I used too much lemon too, I remember, but
Did you take pictures of it too and use the pictures you took for the project?
yeah, I think some of the pictures, some of the feedback was like, this is not appetizing. Like, let's not use this picture. But
Maria, was there any specific project that stands out to you?
Any projects? Well, I took design like principles and strategies in we had a project to make you can make a poster, but you have to use shapes and like photos and like colors, all the design elements, right? And you could either pick like a movie, a book, or a theater, like a musical or whatever, and just use those elements, right? Shapes, photos, colors, shape, like all that, right? Type to convey the theme of the movie, book, musical that you're trying to present. And I did like the Thornbirds, and that was like probably my first projects where I have to like use my brain for like design thinking, right? To kind of like, okay, what can I do? What can I do to convey the message of the whole book, movie, series? And so that was fun, just because I was like one of my first projects I was like forced to like think. Right. So
I was going to say, you want to pivot a little bit because I want to talk about where everyone is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to do. So you guys graduate, and then what happens?
Well, I struggled. So So, right, we graduated like May 2016. It was into February 2017 that I finally got like a design job. And so I went through all these interviews of design positions, but I was not getting called back. So I wasn't sure if either it was like my interview skills or my experience or what. So I finally landed that job with MPI. MPI is a small like photography company that like, they cater to like real estate agents and commercial real estate. So I took that job. It was a good place to start, but the pay wasn't great. There was no benefits. So I had a downgrade from what I had working at the debt collector to 14 an hour with no benefits. I mean, came to me. It was a great place. Like I learned a lot on my feet and how to deal with crazy clients, especially real estate agents. They're out of this world. So I stick with them for 2 years, and I then got a job at in Rockville, and they mostly work with transportation agencies like the Department of Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania. So and I just mostly work with do designs to let people know about upcoming construction projects coming on the roadways and stuff like that. So, however, that company got purchased by another company. So I'm still doing I'm still within like the same clientele with the government agencies. So that I have benefits and my pay is a lot better. So that's what I'm doing right now. And also on that job, I also taught myself motion design. That was another thing that, like when I, through the years, a lot of the clients were asking for more social media animations and graphics, to be more eye-catching for them. So I taught myself using YouTube, and that's another skill set I developed on my own. So I won't say I'm like the best in animation, but I know how to work After Effects. So so that's what I'm doing. I do social media graphics and layouts and stuff.
That's awesome.
Shannon and Tracy, you guys both made huge life changes where you up and moved from Baltimore to Austin, Texas. So how was that entering the job market in an area where you had no connections?
Great question. So right after, I'm going to kind of backtrack. Right after, or the last semester of grad school, I got an internship at Stanley Black & Decker on their strategic design team. So I would help develop new packaging ideas for new products, or say like a rebrand or something. And so I was there for 4 years. And then my fiance is a musician, so he graduated from grad school, and I didn't want to move to New York or LA. So we were like, oh, let's go to Austin. And it was a struggle finding a job. This is going to be news to all of my Black & Decker coworkers, but it's been 5 years, so it'll be okay. I was looking for 8 months for a new job. I was planning the move for a really long time. And I found my now manager on LinkedIn, and I stalked her for 6 months until she hired me.
Heck yeah, LinkedIn.
I support that.
It was like a much more in-depth situation. It was when Hershey was buying out Amplify snack brands, and she was put on a hiring freeze for that long, but she knew she was going to have the position available again. And so we just kept in contact, and I kept bugging her, and she finally hired me.
Did you move to Austin after you got that job, or did you or did you still work Black & Decker remote when you moved to Austin?
I moved once I got the job. So I interviewed with them remotely, and then they flew me down for a full day in-person interview. And then once I got the job, it is when I uprooted. But Vince was already here. I knew I was coming here. It was just getting the opportunity.
What about you, Tracy?
So my situation was a little different. I was working little graphic design jobs while we were in grad school, but after we graduated was when I actually got my position with the company that I'm at now. So I work for one of the top 3 global commercial real estate firms. And at the time I was working in the local Baltimore office, but then in 2020, right before COVID happened, our company went through a massive restructure. And at the time my position was eliminated, but they were also developing a national business development team. So they had given me 2 weeks and I applied for a position on the team, but I wasn't sure if I was going to get it or not. So I was massively just sending out the resume everywhere. I actually ended up getting an offer with McCormick Spices, and I ended up getting the offer on the team with my company. So I really wanted to stay at my company because I wanted to work under the leadership of my current creative director. She's amazing. So it kind of worked out in my favor. And my first day, my creative director was like, it's great. This is a new team. Everyone's remote. And I looked at her and I said, I'm moving somewhere. I don't know where I'm going, but I have to take advantage of the opportunity of working on a remote team. And I really was at the time ready to leave Baltimore. I'm originally from Maryland, but from a very small town. So Baltimore was a big jump for me, but I was ready and itching to get out. And Shannon had moved here like a year and a half or so before, and I had come out and I visited. I loved it. So this was definitely on the list. But when I came back out July of 2020, it sealed the deal. And so November of 2020, I moved. So I had this opportunity where I could go anywhere and I didn't have to look for another job. I could just move. But it's kind of been lovely because we have an Austin office here, obviously. So I'm able to still come in and work in the office. And now I have a different little work family here. So it was an easy no-brainer for me. I miss Shannon in Baltimore. So I was like, I come find you.
And Dawn, as a creative writer or just like a writer, how was your journey finding something after?
So while I was in the program, I was at a company called Words and Numbers that rebranded to Wisewire. So we were like developing textbooks, and my day-to-day was like project coordination, project management, working with writers and editors, and doing a lot of proofreading and like collating manuscripts and getting them ready to be like sent to production. So that was a cool job. I liked it. Wasn't the best pay in the world, but the experience, this sounds cliche, but the experience was priceless. And upon graduating in 2017, I was like, well, what can I do with this resume? And it took me a little while, but I found, it was a marketing coordinator job at a company called Avisis in Owings Mills, Maryland. And that's back when we would all go into the building. And that was an amazing job. Actually, fun fact. So when I interviewed, it was with 3 people, but the woman who was to be my manager, she had graduated from the publications design program, and she also had her undergrad from Towson University in English, same as me. So we had the same undergrad and the same graduate degree. So lucky for me, I was like a shoo-in for the job. And because I did a good job in the interview, I guess. And oh my gosh, I remember I had poison ivy so bad during that interview, and it was like all over my wrist. So I had to wear my big watch to try to cover it. It was on my face. I'm like, I probably look like a leper or something. I don't know if you can still say that, but I got the job and I was there for about 5 years. I worked directly under, her name's Leslie Miller. I'll name drop her. She was an amazing mentor, writer, friend. I'm still in contact with her. So I did a lot of proofreading, writing, editing, but where I really found my niche at that company, so I worked in a creative capacity. I worked in the marketing department. So we were 2 graphic designers, a web designer, creative director. My supervisor was the marketing communications manager. I was the marketing coordinator. So I was kind of like the quarterback for the team, where we used a program called Smartsheet. People from all over the company would request things of us. I need this edited. I need a flyer. We have an email going out, I would kind of make sure we were meeting all of our deadlines and communicating with the requesters. I also similar to you, Jess, they offered tuition reimbursement. So I was like, do I really want to do that? But I felt like I would be leaving money on the table or leaving something on the table if I didn't. I had like the itch, right? Even though I had just put myself through grad school, I did it again. I got an MBA online at Oklahoma State. And during that time, COVID happened. I became a parent twice, and I was working full time, two young boys, and then at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, the kids are asleep. Now it's time to go study managerial economics and supply side Keynesian, all those hot words. It was brutal, but I did it. And then, yeah, I mean, long story short, I had a career break after Avisis. We had a third child. I'm very tired right now. I love my kids, obviously, but it's just a hell of a lot of work. Can I curse on this? And
you did. Don't worry, broke the ice. I didn't ask permission either.
But I mean, yeah, I had a bit of a career break, which was very difficult, but it also was amazing because I had time to support my wife, leading up to the birth, and time to bond with my daughter after the birth. She's almost 5 months. And I recently started my current job. I just finished the third week. It's a company called iMed, which is part of a big conglomerate called Essilor Luxottica. They own some companies you've probably heard of, like Oakley and Ray-Ban and Target Optical and a bunch of things. It's like a huge, some would call it a monopoly. Others would call it like a vertically integrated, like full service eye. They'll sell you like the sunglasses. They own the stores where you go to get your vision exam, and they sell you the insurance to protect your eyes. So I work for the insurance side, and that's kind of where I have experience there. I know the terminology, but what I'm doing day to day is, let's see, it's like project management. It's not even so much creative, to be honest. I'm sorry, my creative colleagues, but the degree at UB, it was a step along the way. I learned a lot there, like I said before, but it led me to a career in marketing communications, and I'm able to support my family and my lifestyle. I work remotely, which is great. And I'd say I made it.
Nice.
Congratulations on the birth of your daughter and your career, Don.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was gonna say that was surprising. I didn't know about a third baby. I'm missing out on my Facebook post. I saw the two, but not the third one.
She's we have two boys, and we're like, do we really want to try? Like, we don't want another boy. Like, we would, we'd do it, but we really wanted that girl. My wife really wanted that girl. I was like, yeah, let's do it. YOLO. And yeah, it's a wild ride. So,
well, forgive me for saying this, Dawn, if it's out of line, but your wife is a knockout. So I can appreciate the fact that she wants a shopping buddy later down the road.
Thank you.
Let's go do our nails. Let's go.
Oh, that's her bestie. Yeah, that's her bestie. She loves dressing her up like a doll. Super cute.
So Monique and I work remote. Dawn works remote. Tracy works remote. Shannon, Maria, do you work remote?
I do, yes.
Shannon said
I
no.
do not. I work hybrid. So I could get into the full thing, but basically I worked for Amplify Snack Brands, which owned Skinny Pop Popcorn, Pirates Booty, Pocky. I don't know if you guys know the One Chip Challenge. We did all of that packaging. And then Hershey bought us, and so we still have an Austin hub in Hershey, in the Hershey company, and so we go in 2 to 3 days a week in downtown Austin, which is really great.
Well, I would think with like print production, you want to like touch and feel it and do all that kind of quality control So
Yes. So we do quality control at the manufacturing facilities. So I travel all over the country to our various plants. But we also do physical proofs, and we also have this new coloring system where, yes, I have to be in the office.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Monique won us an office space.
Yes, I
And
do.
that's been kind of fun to go back down in and out of occasionally.
I like it. It's a escape away from my daughter and her yelling faces. It's nice to get out of
Is
that
that
sometimes.
is that called the Spark Building?
Mhm.
I worked when I was at Wisewire. We were there for a minute. It might still be there. I don't know, but that was a cool building.
Yeah.
It was cool. It's like there were like 70 different companies working there,
Yep.
and it's just a shared workspace. They had like what's that thing called? A shuffleboard table. They had like
I still have it.
they had a beer tap. You could just go get a
Yep.
beer.
Still got
I'm
it.
like, can I really do that? I did it one time, and it was after 5 o'clock. But I was like, this is
It's all
pretty
right.
sweet.
It's approved.
Yeah.
It's very much approved. Actually, Jessica, I was going to ask you, what did you do immediately following graduation? Did you go straight to your next company, or where'd
No,
you
so I stayed at Wells Fargo for a bit. I knew agency ownership was like on the brain, so I started reading books and listening to podcasts. I got married. I met my husband while I was in the program. It was like a 3-day whirlwind romance in July, and then by September we're like, let's get married. And then a year and a half later we got married. The next month we're like, let's have a baby. Got pregnant, and then whoops, pregnant again. And when Finn was born, right around that time is when I got laid off. And I had been planning, like strategically planning to start my own agency while I was on maternity leave. So Wells Fargo beat it to me with like the department layoffs, but I always knew agency ownership and freelancing was going to be part of my career. And I have just not looked back since.
I feel like I knew two of you before you met your current spouses. Like Dawn, I think I remember you meeting your wife. And then Jess, I remember you meeting Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me. We've been around so long.
I know, actually.
So that was before you were married, before kids even
Oh my gosh.
became a thing.
We used to go out for like Christmas parties and like
Mhm.
whatever, making excuse parties, and we'd go
I still
out to
have
all
those
the
pictures.
bars,
I
go
will
out dancing.
We went out for New Year's Eve.
Oh my God. One of the top maybe 10 moments, like drinking moments of my life.
Oh my gosh.
Don, we
I had
danced
so much
all
Red
freaking
Bull.
night.
They had Red Bull on the open bar. I was like, and you were in on it, Jess. You would just like run at me and hand me another Red Bull. I'm like,
I can't
yeah.
remember. That was a great New Year's.
That was fun. I was up until 9 o'clock in the morning. Like, don't drink that much Red Bull, people.
Yeah.
Go to grad
Unless
school.
you're-
You'll find drinking partners.
Unless you're in grad school and you just need something to get through it.
So I have another question for everybody as we kind of start to wrap this up. And that's, what were some of the imposter moments you felt on your creative and career journey? Like, what were some moments where you're like, yeah, I'm a fraud, I can't do this? And then how were you able to overcome them?
I'll go first. I'll be an icebreaker. I got you. So right after grad school, while I was in grad school, I was working at the University of Baltimore as a graphic designer. And for me, those designs seemed on par with the level that the program was. So like I said, I didn't have any context into design programs. So it was me kind of getting a feel for things. And I felt like the design work that I was putting out when I was working at UB was in line with what we were doing in the program. And then I moved to Pandora Jewelry. And then I felt like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I felt so much tension because my designs weren't in this like small community environment. They were national. They were designs that we were going to reproduce in 1 million stores across the country and different countries for that matter. So like the ideas and concepts were going to be a little bit more fruitful than they were just in my local UB environment. And I felt a lot of like stress about that. I remember like having to design some stuff for a Pandora cruise that they do for like members who purchase like a specific amount of beads and things like that, or for investors and things. And I remember having to design like the signage for the cruise ship and like the pamphlets and stuff that they had to hand out. Or like the first time I designed something that was going to be a grand opening for a mall. And I had this like, and I was like, oh my God, like if there's a mistake in here, like so many people are going to see it. I'm not sure. And it wasn't that I didn't have a team who was there who could support me. I absolutely love the team at Pandora. That was an amazing place to be. I just felt such like tension because it was on a more national stage than it was that I had, been a part of. And the team themselves, absolutely awesome, by far one of the best places that I think I've ever worked. But it felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And I think that going through a grad program and being a part of like this small environment and then leaving that and being a part of the real world and at a real job with real consequences for actions is a little bit different than being inside of a program where you're supposed to make mistakes. You're supposed to learn and you grow through those mistakes. But when you're in an actual organization that's worth billions of dollars, there's a little bit more pressure there. So I would say that was one of the first times that I think that I noticed the imposter syndrome, because I talk big crap. Like I'd be like, I'm the best. And I'm not telling y'all that that's not true. I am. I've been saying that since grad school. They can remind you guys. I've always thought that I was on par. But I think that was the first time where I was like, I'm not the best designer in the room. These people are incredible. Their work is incredible. They do amazing things. And you kind of have to like set yourself in that mindset that like, they have a multitude of years of experience and they have so much information for you to learn and to like know and process. And it was a little intimidating at first. Once you get into the groove of it, you kind of feel those things out. But that knowing how big that company was at first and being a part of so many like design conversations that had more national implications was very like, whew, you don't know what you're doing here, girl. You need to take a step back real quick. But it was definitely a learning experience that was very positive. And they definitely did an amazing job at being like, yeah, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to figure everything out on day one. It took us a long time to get here. You're contributing to this overall idea. So there felt some safety, but also there was like, whew, Monique, you suck at spelling. If you misspell Pandora on something and push it out the door, that is not going to be kind. Fun fact, I did that at that next place that I worked. We were pushing out a graphic for an event that was with like, let's say it was Barack Obama level, because it was politics. It was a Barack Obama level event. And I said, this event is on Wednesday at 3 p.m. or Wednesday, February 2nd. But February 2nd was a Thursday, not a Wednesday. And it went out and I was like, oh, fuck, you're supposed to check these things. Like, why wouldn't you check these things? But yeah, a very interesting lesson in imposter syndrome, I want to say, right after I got out of the program. So that's me.
As I mentioned, like I didn't have the design background coming into the program. I identified as like a writer, that was my dream, was to become a writer. That was my dream. It's not my dream anymore. Things change, but people would talk about like, oh yeah, we're designers. I just never like fully identified as that, but I was in the program. So I experienced it many, many times throughout the program, but I learned that that's okay. Like, it's not like I was going to be ostracized or thrown out of the program because I didn't identify a certain way. As long as you do the coursework and you do your best, then it's up to you what you do with that experience. So I was able to overcome that, but I mean, it still pops up. Like, I think it's just a normal part of life where Monique, maybe you don't experience this. Like, you're a boss and you've known it all along, but I'm constantly questioning, like, even as a parent, like, I don't know if I'm doing a good job at this. Like, but you just keep going, It's
Don,
like,
I totally Googled the other day, mom who doesn't want to be around her own children. Like,
yeah. Oh, there's a subreddit for
I'm an
you.
imposter mom.
Yeah. But Yeah, I'd say it's normal. So anyone listening to this, like, just keep going. Just don't give up. Um, but I do have to go. It's really good seeing you guys, you ladies.
You,
So good
Dawn.
seeing you, Don.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Dawn.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Take care. Thanks for having me, and good luck. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Maria, did you experience anything with imposter syndrome?
Like every day,
Graduated?
every day of my life. Well, I guess like starting to my design career, like dealing with all these realtors and like trying to explain to them like, no, this design will work better than what you have put together in Word. Like, I understand what you want you to show me, but this will work better. And I'll, I try to explain it to them, but a lot of times they just want what they want, unfortunately. And, so in those type of moments, I'm like, am I not explaining something clearly? Am I not like asserting myself correctly, or am I a bad designer? Maybe that's why they're like, oh, what she showed me isn't that great. Mine's better, whatever I had made in Word. But I mean, it's one of those things that I learned from my bosses, my creative directors. They explained to me, yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, you deal with clients that you have to kind of do what they ask and request. But that shouldn't discourage you, right? Like, you should always present all the options you want, all the good options, to present them and explain like how this will, convey their message, or how will this be more eye-catching, how this could bring more people to the public meetings and stuff like that. So she's like, don't get discouraged, always present your work. And you have a lot of times you let them decide what they want to do. At the end of the day, unfortunately, they pay the bill, right? So I mean, I always, dealing with clients, I always give them options. Like, here, there's 3 options. We could mix 2 options if you like to see. So I've gotten better than overcoming that, like, insecurity. Like, maybe I'm not presenting myself, but you just have to put effort, you just have to keep going at it.
Side note, Maria, I just remembered that when I was selling my house in Baltimore, you messaged me because you put the flyer together.
I did,
for the
yes.
house. And you were like, are you selling your house? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's me.
Yes. It was fun. I mean,
everything comes full circle.
Yeah, we're all connected. Yeah, that was a fun job, looking at all the nice houses and all that. Like, some realtors were really fun to work with. A lot of them were like, yeah, do whatever you want. Let's get this house sold. I'm like, yeah.
Nice. Shannon, what about you?
Yeah. So back when I was at Stanley Black & Decker, my last year there, they made me a manager of people. And I had no idea what I was doing. Absolutely no idea. I was questioning every single move I did. Am I motivating to them? Am I helping feed their creative juices? Like, am I leading the team's designs in the right direction for the company? I really, really struggled in that moment in my career, because I was truly living the imposter syndrome, because I didn't have any training. I didn't have anything to help me other than what I loved about my previous manager. And my first job out of undergrad was recruiting, and I had a lot of lessons from that too. And so I kind of just remembered what I liked in managers and what I didn't like in managers, and tried to act to that every single day and every single moment. I didn't really overcome that in that role at that time, because I moved to a role that didn't require people management. But now I'm in a people management position again, and I feel much more ready, and I don't feel like I'm having imposter syndrome. And luckily, I've had 2 amazing managers in my entire design career that I can really replicate or take from, and I do, and everything that I loved about them, I just put it into my role. And so I don't think there always has to be like an exact outcome or like getting through it. I think in time you can feel like you are there, like you are exactly where you are meant to be in your career, and it feels good.
Being a people manager is an interesting task.
I like it.
I do too.
I do too. I love it.
It is I love it because I remember being the person who was being managed and like having the light bulb moments from the like junior perspective about like, oh, I get how this is done now, or I understand this concept, but being the person who gives that to another person, like I think it's an incredibly special place. Like, and I think it forms such a unique bond between two people. And like you said, I think that like learning from the managers who managed me, what was effective and what wasn't effective for my own growth, and getting and giving that with the people who you are now managing, I love it. It's just a good feeling. Good
Yeah. I've had interns with my job, and when they come on, I'm like, look, everyone designs their best at different hours of the day, and you guys are in college, so I'm not expecting you to do like a 9 to 5 or 9 to 12. As long as you do the work and you meet the deadlines, like if you're going to work during the day and you want like active assignments, then just put it in like the team calendar. But like if you've got a dentist appointment, you don't need to clear that by me. Like go take care of your health or your mental health, or do what you need to do. Just make the deadline, and if you can't make the deadline, let me know. And I feel like, well, I've had a lot of interns come back and be like, hey, can I do another semester? Or, hey, I just graduated. Are you hiring? And they're just like, the level of freedom you gave, and you weren't micromanaging. Like you gave me creative freedom, and I didn't feel like I was glued down to my desk waiting for something to come in. So I think, Shannon, you do learn from like experience and see what other people are doing, and then take from those experiences.
For sure. You had an imposter moment, didn't you?
What about you?
Oh yeah. I feel like when Maria said every day, I'm like, I so resonate with that. Like, and to what you said too, I think one of my imposter syndrome triggers is being in a new situation. So every time I've shifted careers or like started a new company, imposter syndrome definitely crept in. And then even being promoted onto my team, like I was working until 10 at night just to like over like a flyer, just so it could be the best flyer ever, because I was the imposter syndrome. And then getting promoted and now being in a people management position in the fall, I had imposter syndrome and was like spiraling. But I talked about it with my creative director, and she gave me great advice that she was like, Trace, you're new. Like, just be new in the role. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. And so I led with that vulnerability with my team. And it, I think, was really well received for them to see that, like, I'm learning and you can tell me if I'm doing something wrong, and that's totally fine. Like, thank you for sharing or coming to me if I did do something, that I can learn from. And that helped a lot, just knowing that, like, I'm new. So it became my mantra. I would just be like, I'm new here. Sorry. Like, I'm new. And people gave me grace, which was really helpful. But I really identify with what Maria was saying too about, brokers are tough. Like we get that in commercial real estate for sure. And that's our internal partners. So we're not just trying to adhere to what our client needs, but also what our internal producers need too. And they're not always great at giving feedback. And that was something I was really struggling with. And it did trigger my imposter syndrome, was receiving feedback, especially from someone who's not a designer. Yeah. That's like a relationship trigger for sure. So I had to learn how to receive feedback, and that became a passion of mine, was learning how to receive it with grace and not taking it personally, and knowing that it doesn't make me a bad designer. It's about the work. It's not about me. This actually doesn't even belong to me. It belongs to this firm and this producer, and he needs to feel comfortable with it so he can, be able to speak to it and win business. It's not, this pretty art project for me. It's literally something for them. So that helped me, I think, a lot. And the more that I started to learn about receiving feedback and then being able to teach others, it it was kind of interesting because I made this correlation between receiving feedback at my work and seeing that that was actually something that triggered imposter syndrome in me in grad school. Like we had this 6-hour critique class, but no one was given the tools of how to give or receive feedback. And so there were a lot of times where I would cry after critique class because I think sometimes this happens at my work. People who don't know how to articulate what they're seeing, they can resort to just being brash or, you know, it could come off being rude. Probably the best feedback I ever got, and I say best, was a broker had told me something was traumatizing. Like he didn't like this design, was traumatizing, but really at the end of the day, he just wanted an image swapped. So like you have to just learn how to like dig. It's like, it's really not that deep most of the time when they give feedback, and it's like, okay, you just don't have the words or the vocabulary to articulate. So it's kind of been like more of a fun game and a challenge to like listen to the facts and not start making up stories in her head, because I think that's easy to do. Like, I'm terrible. I should have been a flight attendant. I shouldn't have been a designer. I'm an imposter. Yeah. But it's like, we have to stop that. And we always say in my company, once you name it, you can tame it. So even just identifying those times when I'm like, I'm having imposter syndrome, I'm spiraling, it's like, then I can snap out of it a lot quicker. So I think it's just been a really interesting journey for me. And then, like I said, being able to, like you're saying, Monique, be able to pass that down to your own team and say, you know, and people management fills my cup, because it's not just design. It's like helping people be designers, but then also helping them with situations like this, which just is my passion now. It's like design is one thing, but like that really fuels my motivation. And it's kind of cool to see what I'm learning being able to be passed on.
Yeah. I'm putting an episode on our, I was going to say, Jessica, I'm putting an episode on our docket for creative critique. Because one of the things that I thought was the best part of the program at UB was the critique. Because I think that I had a mentor tell me young designers take critique very personally. She was like, I remember like crying after critique and being like, I suck. I'm not good at this. I'm not going to be good at this. No one values this. And I agree 100% with you, Tracy. Other people aren't designers, and other people don't know how to articulate sometimes what they want or how they want it. So whenever we get a client at our company and they say like, oh, this isn't what I want, or this isn't the designer, I just hate it. Like they say, I hate it. This sucks. This isn't what I asked you for. I always ask them, what do you hate about this? What exactly don't you like? Because if they can't articulate to you what the problem is, then there's a communication error there. It's not necessarily that they hate the entirety of it, but they might hate a specific piece. And even when we onboard new clients and we're talking to them about, you know, what is valuable about the content or the design that you already have, what could be, you know, done better, they always they don't always know how to tell you that piece of the puzzle. It's more like you're pulling that out of them. So I always say design is a little bit of therapy, because you have to pull and be able to extract that context out of someone, because I don't think that people know what they want and what they don't want. I've had like a designer or a person say to me before, like, I think I used a design, it had the color red in it. I can't even remember what it was.
You tell this all the time.
She was like, oh, the color red I want is the color red that my son had when he scraped his knee 3 weeks ago after it bruised for like a day or two. And I was like,
that's
how is happening right now? I was like, what is happening right now? But like for me, I'm like, how would I know what the color of the bruise that your son had? I was like, I suck. Like apparently I can't think of this random color that she's talking about. But I was like, what it was is that there's a miscommunication and like how a client can communicate information over to you and how you can receive that. And if you come as a designer who's really defensive and you're like, nope, I know what I'm doing, I did the research, you don't know what you're talking about, then you alienate your client and they don't want to work with you, or they don't see, you're never going to get to a place of consensus. And then I think another big part of being a designer is being able to wash your hands of something. At the end of the day, this is their property, this is their brand, this is their stuff. You can't internalize it so much that you are now losing sleep over the fact that this didn't go well. And you have, talked yourself into this big, like, emotional state. Sometimes you have to be like, done is good enough. And I'm going to go ahead and move on and start working on the next client or the next project. And I'm just going to like move forward. And I think that that's a problem with a lot of people, because I could understand in any career, if you were getting critiqued all the time by other people, that you could start to devalue, your own instincts. And that's really, really hard. And that's what I love about teaching young designers is that I'm telling them, trust your instincts, but there will be points in time where your client isn't okay with what you put together. And that's fine. If they can articulate to you what they don't do or don't love about something, and you can use that to create a better design. Because I do think that when that critique comes, I've always come up with a better design after. I was like that working process. I'm like, you need this critique, even if it isn't in the most like comprehensive way that you could receive it. You need it to come up with something better. And ultimately what you come up with is going to be incredible and amazing. And that's what you're trying to get to, is that amazing part. We should come up with an episode on creative thinking. Like that.
One of the things that really helps you overcome imposter syndrome is having great managers and mentors. Like in the University of Baltimore program, I would say Joe Fioramonti was a mentor to me in regards to learning how to be an agency owner. And if it wasn't for his guidance, I don't think I would be in the position I am now. I probably would have been laid off, struggled, found whatever corporate job was available, taken it, and then called it a day. But with that mentorship and then just like checking on his stuff, seeing what he was publishing, and it just, I don't know, having those touch points has really been good. And it sounds like everybody just has like either really good managers that are like, you know, what was your saying, Tracy? Hi, I'm new here. Like,
I'm just new
having,
here. Sorry, I did that.
Like, I think just having people who are like, okay, let's explain, let's sit down and talk about this. Like, people are more open than you think. And we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect from the get-go that we don't allow ourselves to be human and learn. Yeah. If we knew everything, then what would be the point?
There'd be no need to go to grad school, and I could have saved Awesome. I think that was the last question that we have for you guys. Or did you have another one, Jess?
Oh, I have one more. And this will be like the sign-off question, and then we'll give our goodbyes. Canva or no Canva?
Like,
I use Canva.
Yeah, like personally, like I would rather push Adobe Express. Like I think that's actually been a useful tool for at least even for me. But yeah, if there's like people out there who find it useful for them, or like people who don't have design resources, I'm like all for whatever they need to get them. I mean, a designer's always going to make something look better, but like I'm not threatened by Canva. Like me neither. You do you, girl. Like whatever you want to do.
Are you threatened by AI yet?
No.
Not yet. I get it.
Thank you,
I mean, we could have a whole podcast on AI, but
no. Oh, that would be fun to see how all the different industries use it.
I always, whenever I'm like creating a new event or something like that, I'll put it into AI and I'll be like, create a brochure for this. And every single time I'm like, I don't like it.
Yeah, I've tried to use it for mood boarding and just ideation. There are some things that I can pull from. I'm also still learning and like teaching myself how to type in the right prompts and stuff, but no, I am not threatened by AI.
Yeah, and there's so much strategy. Like I work in business development, so it's mostly proposals, presentations, but it's very customized, and we tell a story in every single pitch deck that we create. It's not just something that you can drag off PowerPoint. It's so much strategy involved, and we're visual storytellers. So it's not something that can just be created. There's actual thought and intention behind every single thing that we do. So I just don't think it's there yet.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to hold in the future. We'll see. But like right now, it's like I would love to see a producer at my company create a pitch deck with AI and see how that goes.
I would love to see a packaging design from Canva and see how that looks.
Yeah.
No, oh man, I did see something online. It was like people gave prompts to the photo generating AI, and it was like create cigarette packages as if it was these major shoe brands. And I was like, oh, this is really good. Like the Nike cigarette packet and the Adidas. And I was like, man, AI is on point. Some of this is off, but I was like, oh, these are so sleek.
I always think that they use, what's it called? I think it's called isomorphic design. Whenever they come up with like concepts and things like that for AI, and I never like it. I'm always like, it just needs like, it feels not personal to me. Like the designs that they come up with they always feel generic. I'm sure that they will get better as the like software learns and stuff like that. Jessica does like Canva. I hate Canva. I design everything from scratch. I'm like, Jessica, I can't be a part of it. And you gave me.
Listen, I'm just trying. I've got so many things to do. I'm just trying to be as quick as possible.
Yes. I can't. I'm like, I don't like it. Although I will try to start to use it because it is a tool that we can leverage. But I'm always like, I work in Figma, so I'm like, I just go to Figma and just create everything from scratch. And I was like, I like the ideation and the messiness of it that I can get in there. I'm like, if I saw our design 50 times on 50 different brands, like I just would be like, no, I don't like this. Although I do think that you make our Canva stuff very like unique to our branding. I'm not there yet. I'm working on it. I promise.
It's okay. Maria, do you use it at all?
No, I have not. I mean, I know Canva, I know what it is, but like if someone doesn't have a design background and needs something like put together, I think it's a nice tool to have and, maybe help explore ideas, AI, I don't think it's there yet. Like, so at my new company I'm at, it's an agency, right? So a lot of the stuff some people use AI to help generate like concepts and I mean, sometimes it's a lot of the stuff I saw, like how they use it's kind of cheesy. I'm just like, I was like, I probably could have come up with something better if I gave the time, right? But I don't think AI is there yet. It may be in the future, but at the moment I'm not threatened. Yeah.
Monique and I will use it sometimes to like assist with blog post writing. And I was like, they always start the same way. In today's digital world, they always start with that. And then the conclusion goes, in conclusion, I was like, nobody talks like this. Like, come on, AI, get with it.
I love it for like, I think that it does an amazing job data mining. Like it can give you facts or accumulate a bunch of different facts or produce results in that way. I just don't think that it's there on the digital side. It very well will get to the place one day where we use AI in some respects for a digital artwork, but right this second, I can't stand behind it. And on that front, it can do all the data mining and research that it can. I think it's amazing at that thing. And I think it's amazing at coming up with like conclusions as a result of all of the data that you fed it. Just the design stuff, I'm like, no.
Even stock photos, it's like, when someone submits for design review, I'm like, this is 100% AI. If you like zoom in, like people's faces are so weird. I'm like, you just gotta, it's like Picasso, you gotta look at it far away.
Awesome. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for taking this time on a Sunday. I know that it is not easy always to get us all together, but we appreciate your time. We appreciate your energy and your honesty in this podcast. And we know that it's going to be a great episode that future UB students will be able to listen to and be like, I went through the design program. I'm the same as them. I don't really think I want to be a designer. Maybe I'm going to be a writer like Dawn. Maybe I'm going to do something else. Maybe this is exactly what I want to do. I want to be in corporate. I want to be in startups. I want to be in whatever the case is, that they have a little bit of an understanding of what their path could look like and that our paths wildly differed from each other. And that, your graduate program isn't a one-stop shop for getting an immediate job right after you finish, that looks different for everyone, especially in today's landscape where, things are a little bit harder and, there are a bunch of people out there looking for work. So this is just our perspective of what our relationship with our program looked like and where it got us in our relative careers. So I applaud. I appreciate you guys. I think all of you guys are awesome. Also, I did not know that all of you had these like individual feelings about the program when you were in there. That's a conversation I don't think we had when we were younger, is about like where we were. I didn't know you worked at a restaurant, Shannon. I didn't know Dawn worked at a restaurant. I remember design.
I will never forget, Shannon had like a nickel allergy or something.
Yes, I do.
I went back to the restaurant.
It's changed since then. It's dairy now, so.
Oh no.
Love my body. Monique, I quit my recruiting job and just worked in a restaurant during grad school until I got the job at the print shop on campus as a graduate assistant. And then I got the internship at Black & Decker.
Yeah, I was like, I don't remember that. I remember you working in the lab because I feel like I remember annoying you because I couldn't ever get things correct. So I definitely remember that part. But I was like, it's so even like in a form of thinking about imposter syndrome, I was like, for as close as we were at the time, there were still things that we didn't understand or know about each other. There was still some like impersonalization there, which is interesting to even think about, because I think that we were all in a very similar space. I hear a lot of us talk about like, yay, I had to take classes at UB because I wanted to make sure that I could focus on night classes, and it had to be weekends, and I was working a job, or I had to leave a job, or I had to do something. And it was in a place of like a lot of transition in our lives. And I don't think that like we probably recognize that or could come together as a group and talk about that specific things. But looking at it, you know, almost 10 years later, where I was like, gosh, I was feeling a sense of imposter syndrome. I was feeling like I didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't sure that everyone came from relatively different paths. I thought you guys, especially Dawn, I thought everyone was a designer like before they got into the program, and I felt such apprehension going to that initial interview where they asked you like, you want to be in the design program, and you had to show them like samples of your work. I'm like, samples of my work? I don't have samples of my work. I didn't do this before. So I feel like that was like a form of imposter syndrome for me, but to hear that all of you guys were also feeling that and could relate to that is super assuring for like, I call my my younger self Junior Jenkins. Junior Jenkins back there was thinking that she wasn't going to make it and that everyone else knew what they were doing and she didn't. So I appreciate you guys for that context.
Even though we may have not at the time like recognized it as like everybody's in a phase of transition, having all of us together in the program and being in transition, like we were each other's cheerleaders throughout. Like between me and Monique, I mean, I remember her sending me Pandora designs, asking for critique after the program. I remember like Dawn told the story about the poison ivy, and I remember that, like, you know, it's not something you like actively remember. Oh yeah, remember that time that Dawn did this? But like, we were all there cheering each other on through the interviews and the milestones. I remember when Shannon got her internship at Black & Decker, and you know, I think with imposter syndrome, like I said, you need mentors, good managers, and the last thing I would say is you need cheerleaders, Tracy, or people on your side.
Retired now, but
you up.
You still got it, girl.
I always say like cheerleading, literally like being a cheerleader, but also figuratively is just my role in life. Like it is what fills my cup. I love empowering people and bringing them up. And I do think there's a lot to be said about that, having people that are there for you. And I say build your bench. Like you build your bench of people that are that you can go to, and it'll just help you so much in life. So I will be anyone's cheerleader if you need it.
Tracy, we're going to need a list of all your pick-me-up lines.
What's that?
I said we're going to need a list of all of your pick-me-up lines, like your empowerment lines you give to each other.
Oh,
I to yourself, because you just listed off 3 of them on this episode.
Yeah, the other day, we were actually had a book club that I was running, and it was about imposter syndrome. I don't know if anyone has ever read Own Your Greatness, but it's a great book. And we were talking about how sometimes in life, like one of the times I was spiraling at my job, my boss was like, you literally just won an award. And I was like, yeah, but like, it doesn't even matter. Like that brought me up for maybe a week. And then I was right back where I started. And I was like, now I realize that like we have such a hard time accepting compliments sometimes too, or if someone's like, you are a good designer, this looks good, you're like justifying in a way. And so my new favorite affirmation is from the movie Barbie. And instead of justifying a compliment, you just say, thank you, I worked really hard and I deserve this. And so when I get promoted or I win an award, that is my answer now. I worked really hard. I deserve this.
Every time I type like, I'm sorry or I apologize in the email, I'm like, nope.
Delete it.
I'm like, nope. You're not apologizing for that. I was like, you're humaning it. Because I remember I was at work and someone emailed me at like 3:00 in the morning, and I didn't obviously respond like right away. And I apologized. And I'm like, I'm so sorry I wasn't available. And I was like, it was 3:00 in the morning.
Are you sorry? No, yeah.
But it was just my natural inclination to be like, I'm so sorry. And when you were talking earlier about like staying up till 10, like working on designs, I told this, I think, in our last episode, but there was a time where I pulled over on the side of 95 when I was driving to DC to work, and like I pulled over on 95, and then I was like, this isn't safe. and sent a design to someone who had asked me to change something really quick. And I also remember driving to DC and pulling off a highway at a McDonald's, connecting to their Wi-Fi in my car and sending designs off because I was just like, oh, if I don't do it right this second, then I'm just not good enough. And same as you, I would win an award and it would be like high for 2 seconds. And then I'd be like, you got to work, because you're not valuable if you're not working. So I 100% feel that.
Hold on, quick segue. McDonald's, my very first job, McDonald's, I was 15, 16, and an order would get wrong and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And my manager at the time was like, never say you're sorry. You can apologize, but never say I'm sorry, because sometimes mistakes are not yours and you can apologize for the situation. But I feel like there's a difference between the two phrases. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry almost belittles you a little bit, but well, maybe not the more I think about it, but every time I'm like in a situation, I'm like, oh, I need to apologize. I have to really think and be like, is this something that I could have prevented and I do need to apologize for? Or was this just like you said, oh, it's 3 a.m. So when a client emails me now and they text me at 10 o'clock then at night, and I'm like, I don't need to say anything. I'll get to it.
She says a client, she really means me bugging her at odd hours of the night. That's what she's talking about.
I was going to add to that. Like, I think there is a time and a place for apologizing in the workplace. And I think it adds humility. And Monique, to your point, it makes us human too. Like, I'm not going to apologize for something that's not my fault. But, if something truly is my fault and I want to take ownership of that, yeah, I humbly apologize and I will make it right. And I think there's something to say for that too. I don't think it makes you look weak. And I think it actually builds more trust with your clients or your coworkers or something like that, to like just get on a human level.
Yeah.
Especially from leadership, because then I think it shows everyone else like, oh, leaders can make mistakes, then like I'm allowed to make mistakes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was, when I first started the agency, or maybe a little bit after, I had moved into the house. I had a client that needed a logo design, and I was just distracted by so many things. The house is old. There's like asbestos styles. There's lead paint on the walls, and I was just not in it. And I didn't even have a desk set up at the house to like work. And I did a presentation. It was completely half-assed. I knew it was. I should have just asked for an extension, and I ended up losing the client. And I was white labeling under somebody at the time, and she was like, this is not your finest work. Like, I'm going to move it. And I did apologize, and I completely owned up to it. And there was a break in our relationship, but after a year, she did come back, and I was in a different place in my career. And I think with imposter syndrome too, just because you make one mistake, don't think that you've ruined every opportunity. The person you were in grad school, for example, is not the person that you are today. And even the person you were yesterday is not who you are today, because you're constantly learning and evolving, and you need your mistakes and your downs to be better.
Yeah.
All right, let's end it, guys, because we'll be talking.
We'll just talk for hours.
Yeah, dinner. We have a note about food, so it's time to go make dinner.
I was gonna say, I was like, I gotta go eat chocolate chip cookies, so we gotta wrap this up, y'all. And that's how I usually end our podcast, is with me talking about something that has to do with food. And Jessica's like, yeah, it's time to wrap, because Monique's starting to talk about food. But yeah, again, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming. We will continue to keep in touch with each other. You guys are incredible and amazing. All of your careers have landed in incredible and amazing places. Some I expected, some I did not expect. So I'm super happy that all of us got an opportunity and a chance to grow through the UB program, regardless of if that led us to a path in design or if that led us to a different place. It taught us valuable lessons outside of like the constructs of education, which I think is incredibly important for people who are going to go into this program, who are graduating from this program, or who are just in an in-between phase and don't know where they want to be. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us on.
Yay. As we conclude another episode of the Design Imposter podcast, remember, self-doubt may be a universal experience, but it should never define your worth or potential.
Embrace the power of your creativity, trust in your abilities, and continue creating fearlessly. You belong in this space, and your contributions are invaluable to your community and those around you.
Thank you for being a part of the Design Imposter community, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and leave a review to help other imposters find us.
Until our next episode, keep those headphones ready.